Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So, this next segment, what I want to do is I want to talk about how, let's say we have people who are praying 5 times a day, people who are fasting in the month of Ramadan, people who are trying to practice Islam and trying to get closer to Allah Azza wa Jalla. Sorry, I know I'm saying the word practice a lot, because that's going to be the title, but people who are actively getting closer to Allah Azza wa Jalla. For those people, what would be the, how do we keep upon this path, inshallah?
طيب, Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. On this path that we are all on, Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala has put certain mechanisms in place to help keep us on that path. The first matter is the salah. In the salah, what do we say? In every single rak'ah we recite Surah Al-Fatiha. And in Surah Al-Fatiha we are saying Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. Guide us to the straight path. Now, when we are saying guide us to the straight path, we are saying to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, grant us the ability to find the truth and discover the truth. And also it means to stay firm and steadfast upon the truth if we have discovered it. Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. So when an individual says that purely from his heart, sincerely from his heart, in every single prayer that he prays, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala keep him steadfast. Because Allah Azza wa Jalla promises that if you call upon him sincerely, that Allah will respond to you. So no doubt Allah will grant you that. So the salah is the greatest form of thabat, of steadfastness. Secondly, it is extremely important that you are making dua regularly. Now, Salama radiallahu anha, she says that the most dua the Prophet alayhi salatu salam used to make, it was, Allahumma ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. He would say, oh Allah, the turner of the hearts, keep my heart firm upon your religion. The Prophet ﷺ used to ask Allah that regularly. He used to always ask Allah, Ya Allah, keep me firm upon your religion. And he's the best of the creation of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. He is guaranteed Jannah. He is destined for Jannah. He doesn't need to make that dua, alayhi salatu
Yeah, he
salam.
doesn't.
But he's teaching us that that needs to be the dua that we say most frequently. Now, when I don't say that dua for a long time, or I don't make that dua, I should be afraid. I'm in dangerous territory. Because any moment my heart could flip and I could lose this guidance that I have. Therefore, I need to constantly ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Dua. Don't ever think that I'm fine, I'm comfortable, I'm okay, I'm going to be fine. La. Always ask Allah to keep you firm upon the goodness and steadfastness and upon the truth and the guidance. That's essential. The moment I become deluded, the moment I think, you know what, I'm going to be fine, I could never lose this, etc., that's when people tend to deviate and they become misguided. Delusion is the first step the shaitan profits on. The shaitan uses against you to deviate you from the path of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And that's what happened to those who preceded us. All those who were delusional and that had that self-amazement and they thought, I am the one who accomplished this, I am the one who got here, and they didn't attribute this guidance and this goodness that they attained to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. They tend to lose that path and they lose the truth and so on. So don't ever be one who thinks that I'm going to be okay. Make dua. That's number one. Secondly, it is that I need to be in good surroundings, as we mentioned early on. That I need to be in good surroundings all the time. That I shouldn't allow myself to be around bad people, bad influences and so on. And don't ever think that I will be okay by being in their company. Don't ever think that. Some people, they think, I'm fine. I've been on this path for a long time. I'm strong. So I will survive. Don't ever think that you'll survive. Always think that I'm weak and that I will not be able to survive, because these gatherings with the people who are not upon the right path, or those who are wretched or evil, etc., it will leave an effect, it will leave a trace on your heart. And this will eventually grow and grow and grow. And then it will lead to perhaps deviance and misguidance. Avoid that at all costs. Therefore, one needs to be in the gatherings of knowledge and the places of knowledge and the writers and so on instead, and spend their time doing that. Number 4 is that spend your time doing that which is beneficial. I don't believe that the believer should have times that are known as free time. There's no such thing for the believer. Rather, every moment in the life of the believer, he should be preoccupied doing something. Either doing something that's going to benefit him in his akhirah, which is priority, or doing something that may benefit him in the dunya, which is a bridge to the hereafter, right? That's how the believer spends his time. There shouldn't be time where you're doing nothing, because that's when you fall prey to shaitan. When you're doing nothing and you have a lot of free time, that's when shaitan is going to preoccupy you with that which will anger Allah Azza wa Jal. So don't ever be free. Rather preoccupy yourself with that which will benefit you. Keep yourself busy. You know, when you're alone by yourself, you're not doing anything, that's when you're most likely to sin. And to do that which Allah Azza wa Jal is displeased with. Don't have these moments. Preoccupy yourself. These are things that are very important, that will help an individual stay on that path, inshaAllah tabarak wa ta'ala. And I mentioned some of them early on as well, which is that to have a strong relationship with the book of Allah Azza wa Jal, to seek sacred knowledge and so on. These are all essentials, inshaAllah ta'ala. Now,
I feel like with a lot of people, especially myself, this is a bit raw, but I feel like allowing yourself, and I think that's allowing yourself to do something which is in the grey area. And then as it goes from the grey area, slowly you start to get closer and closer to a sin, until eventually you're in that sin anyway.
No.
And you're saying to just avoid the grey area entirely.
Completely. That's what the Prophet ﷺ he says.
Sallallahu
The Prophet ﷺ told us, al-halalu bayyin wal-haramu bayyin. Halal is clear, the haram is clear. But between them, there's a grey area.
Yeah.
وَبَيْنَهُمَا أُمُورُ مُشْتَبِهَاتٍ. He said between the halal and haram, there's a grey area that is doubtful area, etc. That a lot of people do not know. The scholars and the people knowledge, they know this grey area, what the ruling is regarding it. But a lot of people may not know what the ruling regarding this is. The Prophet ﷺ he says, فَمَنِ اتَّقَى الشُّبُهَاتِ. Whoever stays away from this grey area, they have safeguarded and protected their honor and their religion. And then he says, وَمَا وَقَعَ فِي الشُّبُهَاتِ. Whoever falls into the grey area, وَقَعَ فِي الْحَرَامِ. He'll fall into the haram. It leads to the haram. Right? So the Prophet ﷺ telling us, avoid that grey area altogether. Stay away from it. Don't let yourself fall prey to it. Now listen to this. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah tabaraka wa ta'ala, he says there are a number of things that if we do it too much, it will kill our hearts. He says talking too much, laughing too much, eating too much, sleeping too much. If you do these things in excess, what will happen? It will lead your heart to die. It will cause your heart to die, right? These are things that are halal. Eating is halal, drinking is halal, sleeping is all halal, right? But if you do too much of this, it will cause your heart to die. So if these are things that are permissible, that if you do it in excess, that it will cause your heart to die, what about these things that are doubtful, that are in the grey area, that you're going to places that most likely are going to have things that are inappropriate or wrong in it? It is going to leave a trace and a mark on your heart, and it even could cause your heart to die. The believer does everything they can to protect and safeguard their heart, so they do not cause their heart to become distant and further away or far away from Allah. Now,
you know, people who lose their jobs, that sort of stuff. What would you recommend in that regard, in terms of times when I feel like you're really, really tested?
Tests, they come with faith. The more faith you have, the more tests you shall face, the more trials you will face in this world. Allah tabarak wa ta'ala says, أَحَسِبَ النَّاسُ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. Do the people think that they will be left alone to say that we believe and they shall not be tested? وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. We have certainly tested those who came before them. فَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا. So that those who are truthful become clear and apparent to Allah. وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ الْكَاذِبِينَ. And those who are not truthful in their faith will become apparent and clear to Allah Jalla fi'ula. Tests, they come with faith. The more faith you have, the more tests you have. Rather, some of the scholars, they will say, if we did not face tests and trials, we would doubt our faith. Imagine. To that stage, because they know the Prophet ﷺ says, أَشَدُّ النَّاسِ بَلَاءً الْأَنْبِيَاء ثُمَّ الْأَمْثَلُ ثُمَّ الْأَمْثَلُ ثُمَّ الْأَمْثَلُ. Those who are tested the most, the severest test, who face these tests? The prophets and the messengers, and then those who follow them in faith, and those who follow them in faith, and those who follow them in faith. Hardships, they make you, they refine you, they bring you closer to Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. Rather, they're meant to serve as a wake-up call to get closer to Allah Jalla fi'ula, so that Allah tabarak wa ta'ala tests us in this world, and they make us go through hardships so that it can expiate our sins, it can make us closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. If we become distant from Allah, that we wake up, we turn to Him, we seek forgiveness from Him, repent to Him, that it may raise our status in the hereafter in Jannah, and so on. All of this is part of or some of the objectives of hardships. Therefore, the Prophet ﷺ tells us that the people when they enter Jannah, there'll be people amongst the people of Jannah when they are who face the most difficult life in this world. They had the most hardship. When they're dipped into Jannah just once, and they will say that we never face any hardship. Because of the bliss that they experience in Jannah, they'll forget all the hardship that they experience in this world. That's what we're looking forward to. That's the real life. That's the true life that's not going to have any hardship, any difficulty. It's going to be all bliss. This dunya is a prison for the believer. So you treat it as a prison, right? Prison is not going to be the most comfortable place.
Yeah.
Right? So you experience some discomfort so that you can have the eternal comfort. You have to experience some discomfort to have eternal comfort.
Yeah.
Discomfort for maybe 50, 60, 70, 80, let's say even 100 years, so that you can have eternal comfort that has no end. It's definitely worth it. Even if you look at it from a mathematician perspective.
Mathematically, of
it
course,
it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense.
The ratio is 1 to infinity.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it's a case of some of the points that you've touched on, especially when it comes to company. I feel like in terms of, especially in the UK, I can only talk from experience. There's a fact of like, how do I say this in like the best possible way? I think there's a fact of the matter of like, sometimes it's better to avoid some people because that you know that they're just not good for you. They're just genuinely just not good for your deen.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But let's say, for example, there's some people who you cannot avoid, like family members, for example, people that you can't just, not necessarily boycott. I'm not saying boycott, but necessarily people who you can't, like, for example, your mum, your father, your brothers, sisters, cousins, whatever it may be, or even very close friends. If you're part of like the same friendship group, there might be one friend who's doing something that's wrong. How do you address that? How do you speak to them and try and, you know, get them to kind of get closer to Allah?
Now, that's a very good question. So when it comes to people like that you can't avoid, you try to, when you see that they might be a bad influence on you, or they might be, you know, bad, have a bad effect on you, you try to spend less time with them. You try to avoid spending a lot of time with them. However, what you can do is that you need to have a good influence on them, that you need to be someone who tries to pull them to your side, that you try to have a great impact on them. How do you do that? By being the best Muslim you can. Your character speaks a lot louder than anything you could ever say. If you are treating them in the best manner, that you are trying to befriend them, that you get close to them so they feel comfortable to speak to you about anything and so on, so that later on, when it does get to a stage where you can actually talk to them about some of the things and some of the choices that they are making, they will take it better and they will take your advice a lot better. That's essential. Right? It's very important to understand as well when it comes to parents who may not be at that same level of deen as you, that it's not upon you to go and tell your parents this and that and that and that. If you go to them and you start telling them you should do this, you shouldn't do that and so on, they're not going to listen to you. Rather, what you need to do is you need to be the most respectful to them. The more respectful you are to them, they're going to start asking you for things and ask you about religious matters and so on, and then you can address them regarding it. But if you're disrespectful to them, you've shut that door. You will never be able to address them regarding religious matter. Respect and character and treat in the best manner is the most important thing. Now, when you do that, Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala open those doors for you, inshallah.
I think it's a lot of it is about the fact that when you go to someone on the street, the reason why that interaction is different to the interaction that you have with family members or very close friends, whatever it may be, is because that person on the street is mainly your kalam. That's the thing that's getting them to think about Islam or to get closer to Allah. It's your words. But when it comes to the people around you, it's your actions.
100%.
It's and one thing I'll say is this: it's the fact that if you are a role model, especially because we've said as a child talking to our parents, but there's many people who are probably listening who are a parent thinking about their children. And so I say the fact that when I'm praying salah with my family, that my young cousins come up and they look at me and they're like a year old, 2 year old, and they're looking at us, and then they say the things that we're saying or do the things we're doing. You know, they're only 2, 3 years old. Why are they like, you know, that why they when we put our heads down, why are they putting their heads down too? Why are they copying us? It's because that's how children are. We copy our parents to a T. And so it's so important that as well as we're trying to be good role models to our, you know, our family and our parents, at the same time, we need to be an amazing role model for our children too.
100%.
And may Allah make us like that.
Ameen, Ya Rab.
I mean, we've run out of time.
No problem.
Thank you so
I've run out of
much.
things to say. So it's
That's
perfect.
so not true. That's so not true. We
Allah
have even scratched the surface.
Jazakallah khair.
May Allah make it easy for you
Ameen,
to
Ya Rab.
come on our podcast again. I
Allah
really, really appreciate your
It's a
time.
pleasure, honor for you to invite me. It's a pleasure of being
It's
here.
all mine.
May Allah bless you and put barak in what you do and
Ameen.
accept it from you, Ya Rab.
Ameen.
And all of us, Ya Rab. Jazakallah khair.
Well, yeah.
Shukran, 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 shukriya.
Thank you so much.